You know, when the new Twilight Zone came out in 1985, there was a lot of anticipation that it was going to be, not say like the original, but a good successor. What really hurt it was hit and miss, and there was an episode pretty well midway through where a major youth actor who was appearing on General Hospital was in a short, not say blackout, but a short part about kids in the future being tested by the state, and it eventually led to the kid's execution because he was too smart. Now, not saying that's what killed the series, but it put it on a downward spiral. A lot of people stopped watching. Now, 3 years later, we had the same situation, but in a different way. Star Trek The Next Generation had been on for 19 episodes, doing good in syndication, not great, but good. Very big in Canada because most locations were shown before Hockey Night in Canada and other major events on Saturday nights. But this episode really refocused the series, gave a better explanation to the history of the Klingons, and despite the weakness of some of the cast, and I'm looking at you, Gates McFadden, and Patrick Stewart, who's Picard and Dr. Crusher was still a little bit undefined. They smartened up their roles later on too. It seems like everybody upped their game. Now this episode that we're talking about is the classic, I figure a top 10 Next Generation episode, Heart of Glory. Now, this is again the 20th episode of the first season of Star Trek's The Next Generation, first broadcast on the first day of spring in 1988, March 21st. The story was created by Herbert Wright and the great D.C. Fontana, and it was made into script in 2 days by E.P. Maurice Hurley. The episode was directed by Rob Bowman. Now, the idea about the episode explained the backstory to the character of Lieutenant Worf, and Michael Dorn was pleased with the outcome. Michael Dorn has said since then that this is the episode that really allowed him to show what Lieutenant Worf was and could be and was before, like his motivations. Bowman also thought that the episode would work well. He included an overhead shot of the engineering set, which had not been done before in the show, and tweaked the ending. Shots of the Klingon starship were reused from Star Trek The Motion Picture, while the freighter model would be reused as various freighters throughout the various Star Trek TV series. Guest stars included Vaughn Armstrong as Chorus in his first role in the franchise and only appearance in The Next Generation. He appeared in a further 11 roles in the franchise, including the part of Admiral Maxwell Force in Star Trek Enterprise. The episode was watched by 10.7 million viewers during his initial broadcast, and although reviews by critics were mixed, the fans, and especially the fanboys, are very happy. Now, we saw Dorrance playing Worf in previous episodes. There was one-liners saying about the strength of the Klingons, and the fact is he felt a little bit out of place. But this one really showed how much he was out of place in that point in time in the series. In this one, the Enterprise enters the neutral zone to investigate the distress call of Tellurian freighter. The freighter is badly damaged, and 3 life forms are detected aboard. Now, as a preamble to the discovery, LeVar Burton's character is sent over, and he's seeing the people on the Enterprise are seeing what's happening through his visor. It's an okay scene, but doesn't really build a foundation of what's going to happen later on. When the away team beams over and finds 3 Klingons, Chorus, Colmel, and Kunivas, the later is found wounded. The away team returns with them to the Enterprise before the freighter explodes. Kunivas is taken to sickbay, and Chorus meets with Captain Picard to discuss their situation. The Klingon explains that were passengers when the freighter was attacked by a Ferengi ship, and the Klingons took over the freighter to fend off and destroy the Ferengi ship, but the damage sustained left the freighter adrift and faltering. As Chorus and Conmel are shown to their quarters, they are surprised to hear about a fellow Klingon, Lieutenant Worf, who was serving within Starfleet. Now, the interactive scenes between Worf and the 2 surviving Klingons is quite interesting, because it's looped in a way. Said, "Does it fill you with peace?" You know, like a very, very effeminate way to say to confront Worf. Why do you mock me? Kunivas' condition worsens. Chorus, Conmel, and Worf are present when he dies. The tree let out a fierce roar as per Klingon custom. And Data explains this as a warning to the dead that a Klingon warrior is about to arrive. As he returned to Klingon's quarters, Conmel is disappointed that Kunivas was not killed by an enemy, leading Worf to question the nature of the attack on the freighter. Chorus and Conmel quickly change the subject. Worf forces Chorus to reveal the truth. The tree had commandeered the freighter to seek out a place to live as true Klingons, and the damage to the freighter was a result of a battle with a Klingon ship. When the two were seen near the ship's battle bridge, hoping to steal the drive section and escape, they are placed in the brig. Now, there's indication earlier episodes that the Enterprise is being followed by an unknown vessel, but we're found out very quickly in the second half of the episode. The Enterprise is soon met by a Klingon battlecruiser, captained by Commander Kinera, played by David Froman, who demands return of the fugitive Klingons. Knowing that Chorus and Conmel will be tried and executed if they are returned, Worf argues instead for exile to a hostile planet, but Kinera refuses. Now he basically said, let them meet death on their own terms. He said, I too would wish them to be free, but it cannot be done. Chorus and Conmel use parts secreted or saved under uniforms to assemble a disruptor pistol and escape from the brig. Conmel is killed and Chorus takes over the engineering deck. Picard and Worf race to engineering, and Worf tries to reason with Chorus, who is threatening to destroy the warped core and take the Enterprise with him. And the famous line, the battle is not from without, as a Klingon, it's from within. You challenge yourself. Chorus attempts to persuade Worf to come with him and conquer the galaxy as a true Klingon, but Worf retorts that a true Klingon fights out of honor and loyalty, and that Chorus has demonstrated neither. Chorus is enraged, and Worf takes the opportunity to shoot him dead. Kinera is told of the deaths of the fugitive, and Worf declares, when he's asked how did he die, he died well. Worf agrees to consider an offer to serve aboard the Klingon battlecruiser after his service aboard the Enterprise is complete. But when communication with Kinera are broken off, he assures the bridge crew that it was just being polite. Now, this led into a later episode where Riker goes to a Klingon ship, I think no more than 6 or 7 hours. So the ripples from the episode. This episode is felt all the way through, where Worf's former girlfriend or wife, whatever you want to call her, she shows up to consummate the relationship. They have a child, and that's everything derives from this episode in all the seasons, and also leading into the movies. Now, writer and executive producer Morris Hurley thought that Heart of Glory was the closest experience he had in the show to directly place his philosophy into a script. He later credited fellow executive producer Rick Berman with helping to write the script for Heart of Glory, saying, when I had a problem, I could go in and we could sit there, close the door, yell and scream. I pace, he makes suggestions. The two of us made stories work in that room that had to be shot within a couple of days. We were under enormous time pressure and we were working hand in glove. We had a wonderful time in the show, especially. Hurley wrote the screenplay in 2 days from a story created by Wright and Fontana. Now, because of the delays, the Klingon language portions of the script didn't make any actual sense in translation and were simply Klingon-sounding words created by Hurley. Of course, there's a Klingon language now, but in the late 80s it was still in transition. Now, the story in the episode explained Lieutenant Worf's background for the first time in the series, although there was hints, including the story of Romulan betrayal at Kinnemer, which saw the death of his parents. While his foster parents were first mentioned in this episode, they were not seen until the 4th season episode Family, and his stepbrother didn't appear in the show until the 7th season episode Homeward. And of course, his stepbrother is a human, but he had a real brother that showed up later on. Michael Dorn was pleased with the outcome of this episode, as he felt it showed the producers that the fans were just as interested in his character as the others in the main cast. He felt that it could have been taken further and wanted them there to be an epic battle at the end of the episode. The Klingon battlecruiser seen in Heart of Glory, again, was footage reused from Star Trek The Motion Picture, while the freighter was a general model which could come to be reused throughout the Next Generation and other Star Trek TV series. Now, Bowman made bold decisions in designing the confrontation sequence. The director's scripted version showed the fight between Worf and Chorus taking place entirely in the first deck of the engineering section. Instead, Bowman had them fight on the upper deck and used camera angles never seen before in the show, vertical sequences in that part of the set. He also altered the script so that Conmel needed to be hit by tree phaser blasts. Bowman used a Steadicam to film the scenes on the freighter to give a rough effect to the footage. He was pleased with the outcome, describing it as the easiest of all the Next Generation episodes he directed. He said that it was a show where every hand we had was 21. It just worked. No, I tend to agree and disagree because Beverly Crusher's character and Picard are weak in this episode. Because no disrespect to them, but Michael Dorn really let go. It's like a Shakespearean style performance. It's like holding back Laurence Olivier from the last act, and then he said, "Please welcome the greatest actor in the world, Laurence Olivier." Michael Dorn has played, other than John Colicos, the best Klingon ever. But John Colicos was only on for a couple of episodes in the original series and later on. But my God, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Dorn as Worf. If there's a better character in Star Trek Next Generation, I know Picard has their fans, but you look at the weakness of the other actors on the show. When Michael Dorn opens his mouth, people listen, especially with his Klingon theology. Now, guest stars in the episode include Robert Bauer, who had previously been in the band with Michael Dorn as Kunivas. Stuntman Dennis Mandalone made his second appearance in Next Generation with this episode, having previously appeared early in the season in Where No One Has Gone Before. He would continue to appear as various crewmen throughout the rest of the series. Heart of Glory, again, was the only appearance in the Next Generation for actor Armstrong. He would, however, go on to play further 11 roles in the Star Trek franchise, including the recurring character of Admiral Maxwell Force in Star Trek. Now, first broadcast in the United States on March 21st, 88. Now, in Canada, it was shown on a Saturday night in the Maritimes before Hockey Night in Canada, which is kind of significant because the Montreal Canadiens were in the midst of their season run to make it to the Stanley Cup final. The idea about CBC being not say a test season for the show, it was quite strong response from people. Now, you might say, what in the heck are you showing Star Trek Next Generation Canada on a Saturday night? Well, back in the weekend, Space 1999, the original Star Trek series, even in syndication, was shown on Saturday. So Saturday, for a lot of people, was Star Trek Day in Canada. No disrespect to Hockey Night in Canada, but putting it back and forth. Now, big ratings for this. I think we had 2 million people watching in Canada, 10.1 million, 10.7 million for this episode. It's 0.6 above what happened with the previous episode, Coming of Age. Now, only the episode Symbiosis received a higher rating by the end of the season. Now, when several reviewers rewatched the episode after the end of the series, Keith DiCandido reviewed the episodes for Tor.com in July 2011. He's a novelist and has produced works based in the Star Trek universe and describes himself as the Klingon guy as far as Star Trek novelists are concerned. He was not overly pleased with the episode, describing the plot as being slow and saying that Michael Dorn's acting was mediocre, but would get much better later in the series. And that's why I can say publicly, this guy's full of shit. I know some people respect him for what he knows about the Klingons, but I've been following the Klingons as long as he's been alive. Michael Dorn, it was held back in his episode, but it was left open out in the second half. He left everybody in his wake. Now, he did praise David Froman as Canera, describing as having tremendous presence, and thought that although Von Armstrong was excellent as Admiral Force and Enterprise, in this early episode, he was overly histrionic. He described the overhead shot of Worf after death, of course, as just silly, and thought that the episode overall was a forgettable mess. He gave it a rating of 4 out of 10. And I can tell you this person probably never had any experience that would justify him writing something like that. When I originally read his review on this years ago, I can say then and say now it's complete bullshit. Now, with Zach Handon, writer for the AV Club in May 2010, thought that the first act of the episode was slow, but it improved after that, and said that while it's not exactly a tearjerker, it allows Worf the dignity the character needs to work. He had mixed feelings about the Klingon death ritual, but felt that it was justified at the end of the episode, as the complex nature of the character, of course, made the sense of loss feel earned. He gave the episode a grade of B+. I give the episode an A-, and I tell you why, it's too short. If you would have made a 90-minute, like some of the Star Trek Next Generation episodes would be better at 90 minutes. maybe have flashback Worf and maybe talking to Picard how Patrick Stewart as Picard, season 5, 6, would probably talk to the Worf character. But I know it's kind of weird first season they're feeling each other out. And Patrick Stewart's the type of actor, once he got rolling, he was a much better actor. And I think as the seasons went on, he shorthand would come in happy. By the way, you're going to be shocked by this. I think Michael Dorn is the MVP of a lot of the Star Trek episodes, and Picard is a close second. That's just me. Because I like him as an actor, but some of his early episodes as Picard, not there for me. Now, Michelle Erica Green watched the episode for Trek Nation in August 2007 and described it as one of her favorite episodes from the first season. Now, among female critics, the episode did much better. I know there was various publications I read later on, and female critics and writers got it the most because he saw Worf as a romantic. And that's why, of course, he put him with Deanna Troi, if you remember that. She taught and laid the groundwork for later episodes of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager regarding the Klingon culture. She felt that the drama unfortunately seemed artificial, and that the writers forced a situation where Worf had to kill one of the Klingons as if justifying the brutality as necessary for the good of Starfleet. Well, no, because he had to kill the person who was going to blow up the ship. I would have done the same thing. Now, Jamai Epishikan at his website Jammers Reviews also thought that the drama of Worf deciding whether or not to join the Klingons was questionable. He thought it was hard to believe that the crew seemed to know Worf as little as he did at this point in the series, but praised it for being the starting point for Klingon-based stories in the franchise. He gave it a score of 3 out of 4. But get this, 20 episodes would probably reflect 24 days in the Star Trek universe, or 25 days, give or take. So, where does it say that you should know everything about your coworkers in the first 20 weeks of anything? It takes a while to get used to. I've worked with a lot of people in the different newspapers I worked in the province, and I knew with certain people within the day how good or bad they were, while others it would take later, because sometimes a two-face or a good two-face, someone treats you bad and treats you good, shows up later on. Now, the first home media release of Heart of Glory, again, did great on VHS. It was a cassette. Appeared on November 11th, 92 in the States and Canada. The episode, again, was later included up on the Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1 DVD box set, released in March 2002. Anyway, the Season 1 Blu-ray, would you believe it was released in 2012, and it has this episode too. So this is just my basic opinion, but I want you to read different media of what people think about this episode. But there's a delineation between the episodes before this and after, and when what I call the bugs took over Starfleet, which hasn't been really looked at since then. It was building after this. After this was like 7 to 9 out of 10 were previous episodes 5 or 6, and were some of it was more for lapse, and Denise Crosby was being underused. She asked to be left of the show. She was killed off. That episode was strong as well. But Michael Dorn, I had seen him as an actor on Mary Tyler Moore as a kind of a part-timer on ships, different stuff. I never thought in a million years that someone like him, and I always thought the Shakespearean ones like Christopher Plummer and John Colicos, my Canadians, because I think a Canadian can play a Klingon better than anybody else, because some of us have a little, evil maritime or even evil Newfoundlander or evil Canadian in them. Because an evil Canadian is a good actor, by the way. And all I know is this: I look at the Klingons after Star Trek the motion picture, it was getting better and better and better and better and better and better. And Michael Dorn is the grandfather of, and you saw that in Picard. There's certain scenes in Picard, he's the best of the final season. And again, nothing against Patrick Stewart, but Patrick Stewart has a certain acting style, and it's not my style, but I respect him for it because I saw him as a Shakespearean actor in those BBC productions back in the day, playing, even members of the Russian, well, I say Shakespearean kind of style. But I mean, Michael Dorn, like I said, you see the interviews he's done, especially in the recent podcasts the last couple of years. He got it. He got it what the Klingon is all about. And there was aspects of the evil Klingon, the John Colicos version, and what I call the honest or real Klingon like Michael Dorn. He brought the real Klingon into the universe because before the Klingons were seen as misunderstood and evil. Because all the Klingons in the early classic series, majority of them were pricks, and Michael Dorn wasn't a prick. Again, Michael Dorn was a shark with a bunch of salmon. He's trying not to eat the salmon, and if you piss me off, I'm gonna eat you. But so leave me the frig alone. Be gone. Something like that. It's just tremendous. But Michael Dorn, again, why he was not named for Best Supporting Actor Emmy, who knows? Like anything else, it maybe is all favoritism, but he's the greatest Klingon of all time, in my personal opinion. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing with our Star Trek Next Generation Vintage Review podcast, let us know what to like, comment, subscribe, or share. It's not too often I get totally honest here about a certain thing, but put it this way, who reviews the reviewers? I'm an essayist and I read reviews about certain things. There's people out there that don't like Alfred Hitchcock. There's people out there don't like The Simpsons. People out there don't like ER. People out there don't like Lost. People out there don't like MASH. Why? Something good, you're going to put it down? But the best one, I met a reporter many years ago who told me that Trailer Park Boys, our Canadian comedic big show, was a disgrace. You know what I told him? I said, maybe you're the disgrace. I said, who normalized gay married couples on Canadian TV? Randy and Mr. Leahy. Who do you think they are? They're not getting ready for a play. It's iconic. My God, they filmed a scene 12 miles from our place with Reedy McNeil pulling dope with her staff and band. So I know we're off topic. Anyway, Michael Dorn, it's a Klingon #1, but I like to see people finally understand that he did something that was never done before. He had to take a major science fiction group of people and make it his own. And it took him 20 episodes, and he finally did that. Home run, grand slam, Bob the Knight, winning the World Series. Thanks for listening, and have a good evening.